Hey everybody, welcome to the next edition of our webinar series on how to cook seafood. I am Barton Seaver, chef, author, seafood evangelist, and proud Maine resident with my kid squid and ladyfish here on the ragged, jagged, delicious coast. Anyway, today we are going to be cooking something from the very opposite coast, and that is one of my very favorite seasonal seafood treats, and that is sockeye salmon from Bristol Bay. And though this fish is available year-round, it is here and now, late summer, late June, early July, that this fish begins teeming back into the waters of Bristol Bay in tens of millions of fish. Now, Bristol Bay, Alaska is, it's one of the world's most pristine and productive ecosystems, and there it is home to almost half of the global production and population of sockeye salmon. Sockeye salmon fishery, as I said, tens of millions of fish stream back into those waters, and it's second in size only to the pink salmon. Now, these fish that tend to be 4 to 6 pounds each or so, they're just absolutely fabulous. They're really the salmon for salmon lovers. They have a deep, deep, rich red mahogany, sort of rusty sunset color to the flesh. They spend a couple years at sea before they swim back into the rivers where they're caught. And, hey, this is a fish that is worth celebrating. And we'll talk about sockeye salmon throughout this webinar today. Now, this webinar today, as we are grilling out here, and due to the vagaries of neighbors with leaf blowers, my kids' nap schedule, the weather, etc., we are pre-recording these, and we'll be doing 5 recipes, and, cutting back and forth between them, and I'll be taking some live questions in there, and then at the very end as well, taking some live questions. So, 5 dishes we're going to be doing for you today. First is going to be a whole grilled, nearly whole, headless and tailless. That's going to come with a marinade and be over lemons, as well as a little bit of fennel stock. We're going to be doing a how to grill skin on with salmon. So that's a technique that can be applied to, just about any fish. We're going to be featuring the sockeye salmon skinless, wrapped in kelp. Or in grape leaves is another way, and that's going to be another just demonstration of how to add incredible flavor to the fish while ensuring that it cooks efficiently and well on the grill. We're going to be doing a salmon burger, showing you how to utilize trim from the fish, as well as a smoked sockeye panzanella salad. So, with that, let's dive in. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do with the whole fish, this is headed, so it's still got the collar on. That'll add some structural integrity to it, as well as I took off the tail, because it has to fit on my grill, right? That helps. So the scales are still on, and with salmon, it's one of the few fish that you can leave scales on. They really cook down to nothing. As well, we're going to just be making a few very thin, shallow slashes in the fish. Now, that is to let some of the marinade in, as well as to help the heat evenly penetrate. So the marinade that I've got, this is just in a little Ninja food processor chopper. This is a mixture of toasted fennel seeds that have been ground down, shallot, a little bit of onion powder, olive oil, and a little bit of garlic powder. Now, I've got some fennel stalks on the grill. I've got some lemons as well that were already on the grill, just to get a little bit of flavor. So what I'm going to do is stuff the cavity with some of those lemons, and that's going to help it maintain structural integrity as well, just give that belly something to rest on. And that is, in fact, how we're going to be cooking the fish, is upright. Now, Katie, if you'll come over to the grill, and Katie, thank you, is my camera woman this afternoon. So she is wonderful. And what I want to show here is that we're going to be cooking the fish in the middle of the grill, upright, just like that, with those lemons in the belly. And then the heat is on the side. I've got charcoal and wood, and I've got the grill grates about half open, and I've got the charcoal on either side. And the reason for that is that it's going to create this convection heat when I put the top on. And I'm going to use the tongs. I'm just going to nestle those fennel stalks in like that, and that'll again just help it to maintain a little bit of structural integrity. Now, another thing that I've done here is I've put the salmon parallel with the grill grates mostly, and the reason for that is that when we go to remove it, it should just lift right off, but I want to put a spatula underneath it, and I don't want to be fighting against every grill grate in order to do it. So I'm just going to get my hands a little bit dirty here. I'm going to just put this marinade over top. Now that's going to just soak up all of that flavor. It's going to char just a little bit, and it's going to also slowly release its oils and help to baste that fish as it goes. So it also ends up acting really kind of as a sauce. You don't need to marinate it in this so much because, well, just doing this is good enough. And as those oils melt down and get into the flame, it gives you that flavor of the grill. So what do we do now? Just cover the grill. That's it. That is grilling a whole fish. So obviously it fits nicely inside this little 18-inch grill. I've got both the lower grill airflow open just a tad, and then the top open just a tad as well. So what I've basically effectively done is created a grill oven here. It's probably about 350 degrees in there or so, and it's just going to cook down. It'll probably take about 40 minutes. We're going to use a thermometer to test the doneness of the fish. We're looking for about 130 degrees right along that backbone. And, well, hey, that's it. So we'll be back with you when that's ready to be taken off the grill, and we'll probably get started on something else in the meantime. Hey everyone, it's Future Bart. I'm back with you. Appreciate all of you joining us today. This is really fun, as always, to be with you. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about fish, to talk about my beloved ingredient category, and I'm really thrilled to be with you today talking about sockeye salmon. As I mentioned in the pre-recorded videos when I was outside, that, well, it's one of my very favorite seasonal seafood treats. It is, well, it's one of the things, along with shad roe, with soft shell crabs, with scray cod, the spawning cod early in spring, some of the things that I so very much look forward to. But unlike so many of those other seasonal seafood treats, sockeye salmon is so abundantly available. It is one of the most abundant of all the seafoods that we have access to blessedly in this country. And, very thrilled to be cooking with it today. So I'm just going to take one question now, and then we'll go back and forth. We're going to have a couple of videos, as I mentioned, talking about those different recipes that we're doing. And hey, I also just want to thank my friends up in Alaska at Bristol Bay Salmon for helping sponsor and bring this episode to you. And one other thing about this is, well, though I'm cooking salmon, a lot of these techniques and tactics and tips, tricks, techniques, whatever they are, apply to a whole range of seafood. So please do see this as a seafood-centric thing, but cooking up America's favorite seafood, salmon. So with that, let me dive in, and we'll take the first question here from Hilda. Hilda, nice to see your name pop up again. Many thanks for your talent and care in these live events. Very kind of you. Thank you very much. Can you please review the little trick for doneness when cooking meat or fish? I remember one test is the sensation of a fingertip to the tip of the nose means well done. What are the others? Okay. So yes, with fish on the grill or fish anywhere, seafood, it's quite easy to tell the doneness of it once you get the hang of it. But one of the things that I learned early on as a line cook was the finger technique, which was, if it feels like the knuckle, it's well done. If it feels like the base of your thumb, it's medium. And if it feels like the webbing between, then it's rare. So somewhere in the middle of those things is what you're looking for. But really with seafood, what I look for most is the flakiness. And you can tell this just by a very gentle press of the fingertip. And seafood, well, fish, when cooked, with the exception of like swordfish or amberjack, very dense fish, fish like salmon, fish like cod, when they are cooked, they flake. It's just universal. So if you press with very gentle pressure and the fish begins to flake apart and you can see that separation in that texture, then it's cooked.
You can also see if it's still holding together at one point in the fish, so that means it's not cooked all the way through. You need to give it a little more time. But that combination of the visual with that very slight pressure feel is a really great way to do that. And one thing also to note is that, well, like in a salmon fillet, you're going to have your thin belly portion right here, and then you're going to have your thicker portion, up in the loin, up towards the dorsal fin. So if this is flaking really well, you still got to check up here. And so just be aware of that disparity in the cooking times between the fish. So with that, hey, I appreciate your question, Hilda. Again, nice to see you. So with that, we're going to switch back to the video, and we're going to talk about some of the other methods and finish out that whole grilled dish. And by the way, that is such a sexy, sexy dish. And I ate it for dinner last night with the family, as well as sent some home with Katie, the camera woman, and my business partner. So enjoy that, and we'll see you back here in a few. Cheers.
All right. Hey, folks. We're back again. So I have trimmed up one of the fish, and, I'll show you how to do that next week. But what we're doing here is showing you how to make the burger. So the burger is, it's just utilizing trim, and this is trim from any part of the fish, from the ribs. And you can do this with any kind of fish as well. You see what I'm doing here is just taking the meat off of that little tail section. I've got the two fillets right here. I've got the skeleton of the fish, as well as those rib sections. Now here is where you just use a spoon, real fancy tool, and you just scrape the bones. And that's it. You just want to make sure that you're not ending up with any bones in there, but they're all fairly obvious at this point. So with that, then that actually becomes trim and waste, but it's really great fertilizer as well. Makes good stock. And if you're not making a burger with this, if you don't get enough out of it, it also makes really great sushi. Mix it with, spicy mayonnaise or something like that. I mean, look at that. That's very high quality filet meat right there. And even though I filleted this pretty efficiently, there's still just some on there that's going to be, it's just very, very hard to get off as part of the fillet. So, might as well put it to good use, right? And there you go. I mean, a salmon cake, a salmon burger, whatever you're doing, that's 4 ounces of meat right there that you don't want to waste. And there you go. There's a little bit more in that tail. So if you are going to be doing sushi or eating this raw, just make sure that you are following all the safety precautions that you should with raw fish, and that is that it's been frozen at deep temperatures for at least a week or so. So you just want to be careful with that. So with this burger, all that I'm going to do is, I'm just going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'll very finely chop or mince up some pickled ginger, and that's just white. It doesn't have the pink in it, the pink coloration, and a little bit of salt in there. And you do want to season the mix, you want to season the mix, not just season the burger on the outside, because what the salt does is it will draw out water-soluble proteins, and that will help the fish cake or the burger to bind when it cooks. So it's not just a pile of flakes, but rather it is bound slightly. So you want to avoid putting a lot of moisture in it. You want to avoid putting fat in it. You want to put all of that on the outside, and there is your burger. And we'll grill that up a little bit later after I've fully prepared it. So, all right. With that, I think we'll probably take a couple of questions, and then we'll get back to pulling this off of the grill, our beautiful whole salmon, as well as starting to grill up pieces of the fillet with the skin on, as well as wrapped in the kelp, and we'll finish it all out with the panzanella. So I'll see you in a second. Okay, so we've still got the whole fish on the grill. I've added a few wood chunks to that just to keep the fire going. That's probably got another 5-10 minutes or so on that. So in the meantime, we're just going to show you, I filleted up another whole fish, and you can see again just how beautiful that coloration is, that deep, rich, dark mahogany sunset red. Now, I'm going to be doing just two dishes. One is which to show you how to grill with the skin on. Now, again, the scales are on this fish. They don't need to be taken off with sockeye. So with this, I'm just going to season with salt. And because I live right on the coast, it's really hard to keep salt from not caking up. So this is just a kosher salt. I'm going to lightly olive oil. Give it just you just want to glisten it with oil. You don't want it dripping in any way. And then just let that sit there. And that's all the prep I'm going to do on that. And then for the wrapped in the kelp or wrapped in grape leaves, what you want to do, and I'm going to do this skinless. Now, to skin a fillet, you want to keep it as close to you, but still on the board as is possible. The reason for this is that when you skin a fillet, you want the knife flat against the cutting board. The reason for that? Well, because the skin is flat against the cutting board, right? So if the fish is up here, where's my hand? Where's the knife? Well, not flat against the cutting board, right? So you're going to cut a lot of fish instead of a lot of skin. So the way to do this is just put one little finger right there and just come just under that skin until you can separate those two. And you can see that sockeye has this thick lamination of fat right under the skin, which is beautiful and helps that skin to crisp up when it's on the grill. But it also makes it very easy to remove. Now watch what I'm doing. Now I've got enough skin off that I'm able to get a grip on the skin, and that's what I'm going to do is move. Wow, it's so fatty, having trouble gripping it. I'm really moving the skin more than I'm moving the knife. Okay? So I left the knife pretty much stationary on the board, and as soon as I had that grip, well, then I just pulled the skin basically across the knife. I'm gonna put that right there, wipe off, and show you what that looks like on the other side. So I haven't left any skin on there. There's just a tiny little bit of it right there on the bottom. That's easily peeled off. So there you go. And what I've got here is some kelp. This is dried kelp. You can certainly use fresh if you're harvesting it yourself. And I've rehydrated this in just a little bit of vinegar and water. And what we're going to do, this is classic, like wrapped in banana leaf style. That's kind of the inspiration on this. If you've ever seen that in various Central American, I believe even Hawaiian cuisine, island cuisine, all the kelp will do, or the grape leaves, is to protect that fish, but also it's going to release all of its flavor and sort of steam the fish from the inside of this little packet. Plus, the packet then also becomes very easy to handle. So I'm going to take this and put that as part of our burger that we're going to be cooking up here in a second. And with this, then you just fold it over. And there you go. And you're not trying to get a good sear on this. You're not trying to get grill marks on it in any way. You're just trying to create a packet that's going to trap that moisture in there. And there you go. So, all right. So I'll be back with you in a sec. Well, actually, you know what? For the whole grilled, I'm going to make because we're doing sort of a Mediterranean type flavors with it, I'm going to be doing a fennel and orange salad with olives, olive oil, and red wine vinegar. So that's going to be the side dish for that. I'm going to serve it whole on this plate, so I'll be right back with you. Cheers. All right, so we're set up now with the rest of our dishes. We've got, well, everything ready to go. I'm just going to finish this dish off. I've got some red wine vinegar. I've got some clementine segments, some fennel, thin shaved here. And since we're going, as I said, with sort of a Mediterranean theme on the flavors, this will do really well. Now that salmon's going to be nice and fatty and rich, so you don't need to put too much into the salad. Then I've got some chili flake marinated olives. Yeah, so you've got the sweet, sour, sort of spicy whole thing going here. Fennel and orange and olive is really just one of the world's greatest combinations there is. So I've temped this fish over here. By tempt, that's chef talk for taking the temperature of, and we're sitting pretty at just about 125, which is really about perfect. 120, 125 in there, because the carryover heat is going to continue to push into the flesh and continue to cook that. So I'm going to serve this, instead of trying to serve it on like individual portions, I'm just going to put the whole thing on a giant platter, right? I mean, because why cook something big and beautiful if you're not going to serve it big and beautifully, right? So, just going to come right under it. Use your hands if need be. It's not all that. We're just going to put that right up as it was on the grill. Throw a bunch of that underneath over here. Throw the rest of this over here like that. All right, okay, now I'm going to turn this for you. This is nice in the sun like that. You got all those juices flowing out. Man, I mean, look at that, right? There's your whole grilled sockeye salmon with orange, fennel, and olive salad, a little bit of spice to it. And in order to serve this, all you do is just, whoops. Oh, hot damn, that's delicious. Just take this, take a spatula or a knife or a large fork, and just peel it down off the bone. This marinade becomes, oh man, marinade becomes a sauce. It kind of drizzles, you get mixed into the fennel salad there. Life is good. Everything is delicious. Bristol Bay sockeye salmon, whole grilled. Wow. There you go. So one of the things that's really great about sockeye is that it's one of the more robustly flavored of fish. So this here, that pairs perfectly with red wine, like a nice soft Malbec or a big hearty style Pinot Noir, things like that. Certainly Gamets and lighter style reds go perfectly with it, but man, that's good. And after all of that work, if you were to come to the table like this and say, hey, I made you something, guess what? Your guests are going to be really happy, right? Yeah. That's good cooking. All right, so I'm going to get back to my fire here. I'm going to rearrange it, and then we'll come back and we'll finish it out. All right, see you in a second.
Hey everyone, I'm back again. Again, thanks for joining me. I'm so excited about this. Watching this video along with you, it's fun. That was a really hot day out there. Yeah, it was a nice hot day. So I'm happy to be sitting inside the kitchen today with you. So we're going to take another couple of questions for you, and then we're going to go back and we'll do the overview of how to cook with the skin on and how to cook the burger as well as the wrapped in the kelp. And we'll get back, and well, I hope this format's working for you. It seems fairly clear enough, but yeah. Anyway, we always love to hear your feedback. We always love to get it right and do these best for you. So, all right, let's dive into another couple questions. So, what are your thoughts on the steak cut? Can it make a comeback? From Lilani. Hello, Lilani. It's nice to hear from you, my friend. Thanks for joining us today. The steak cut. So, on a whole fish, head, tail, the steak cut is typically, instead of filleting it across, so you have two fillets on either side of the backbone, the steak cut is, you go straight down through the middle, top to bottom, so dorsal to belly. And you've seen this, a lot of retail stores will sell this cut. It's a good cut. But quite honestly, I think it has some drawbacks. It also has some great benefits, though. The drawback is that you can't always effectively get all of the pin bones out of it, so that there is that little bit of work that people are going to then be required to do in terms of just finding those. The other is that the belly portion can cook very quickly because you're cooking it actually on the flesh. You don't cook steaks on the skin, which is kind of like a sushi wrapper, almost on the outside of it at that point. And you're only talking usually about 2 fingers thick is a steak. So because you're cooking it directly on the flesh, the belly portion can tend to render out its fat a little more quickly than if you were cooking it with the protection of the skin underneath it directly to the heat. So In that way, you end up with a little bit different texture to it, a little bit different, less control over how to cook it all the way through. But the benefits to it is that it's gorgeous. I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous. And it has that just plate presence that cannot be matched by just a fillet or even an angled tranche cut, they're called. So there's a lot to the benefits of it. The other thing is that you can get so much flavor into it. But one of the other drawbacks I find is that the skin then doesn't crisp up because you're never applying direct heat to the skin. And so I found that kind of can be a little bit of a distraction. And it is necessary because you have to have that skin on in order to hold it together. So while I appreciate the steak cut, I also think that there are better ways to control the cooking and to achieve sort of the most desirable outcomes on the food. So I'm sorry, Leilani, if you are like a diehard steak cut lover there. I'm not down on it, but I just think it's more of a I think a more classic seafood presentation than we're really seeing in modern cuisine. So hey, thanks again. Appreciate you being here. All right. Another one from Tobin. Did you and your wife deliver the baby yet? Gender, name, weight? No. Hey, Tobin. Well, thanks for asking. No, not yet. No, we are 2 weeks away yesterday. So 13 days from today, the planned C-section. Our second little boy will be joining us, and we could not be more excited. So, hey, thanks for asking. I appreciate the concern and the friendship there. But to that point, if you'll look directly beneath me in this window here, it says on July 23rd, we'll be featuring your suggestions and questions, maybe even your video. So please pre-submit any questions that you've got. These are open office hours where I'm just going to be answering, well, any question you've got about tilapia, unicorns, rainbow farming, whatever, man, whatever you got. However, I am going to be in the hospital with my wife and son, so I won't be here. I'm going to be pre-recording my answers to that. So please do me a favor, send in those questions early, and we'll get those answered. And then after the baby's here, we'll see you back live. So, hey, thanks, Tobin. I appreciate you. Okay, one more question, and then we will go back to the grill. Your books are terrific, from Sharon. Well, thank you, Sharon. You're so kind. I appreciate you joining again. Could we get a Kindle version of 2 If by Sea, please? Thank you. You know what? I thought that we'd made one of those. You know what? Let me look into that during the next video, and I'll get back to you on that, Sharon. But yeah, that should be easy to answer. So I'm going to take one more question then from BKJ. Hey, BK. Good to see you again, friend. Thanks for joining again. Chilean sea bass is expensive, but super delicious. Well, yes, sir. I do not want to mess it up, so when I cook it, I keep it simple. What other ways to feasibly prepare it without wasting this fish? You know, I said yes, sir. I don't even know. So anyway, what are the ways to prepare it? You've seen me do this before. I think in some of them, I'm not sure if you joined before, but as you know, my toaster oven right back there next to my antique radio is I put on NPR and cook. One of my very favorite things to do is I've got these cast iron pans that are just absolutely gorgeous. These are a Staub brand, and they were kind enough to give me some of these when I was shooting and doing the food styling for my book 2 If by Sea. But they are just absolutely fantastic pans that you can get rip roaring hot on the stove. And I'm talking like the metal itself is smoking. And I will put literally just 2 drops of oil on a piece of fish, like Chilean sea bass is a perfect example, and just brush it over so that you're barely glistening it. And then put it seasoned side, oiled side down directly into the pan. Turn off the pan and then throw the whole thing right into your toaster oven. Toaster oven at about 300 degrees for Chilean sea bass, I would say. And what you're going to do is, because this is holds so much heat, you're going to continue to get that sear on the fish while you are cooking the rest of the fillet slowly, gently, beautifully through. And in that way, you get the best of both worlds with Chilean sea bass, which is it's able to be textured so well, but then it also keeps that succulent, almost yogurt-like, custard-like texture to it with just that perfect cod-like flake. I mean, oh my God, that fish is so good. But with Chilean sea bass, from a sustainability standpoint, many people know that Chilean sea bass was nearly eradicated through our almost instantaneous demand for it in the late 80s, early 90s. But Chilean sea bass is now, there quite a lot of it, I believe almost 50% of Chilean sea bass on the market, if not more so, and I have to go back and look, is coming from Marine Stewardship Council certified fisheries. So the certified, sustainable, and chain of custody, so you can be sure of what you're getting when you're buying at the store. So it was certainly a fish that was a no-go for a long time, but now is really a success story of how we can manage. And oh my God, is that fish delicious. Oh my gosh. So another substitute for that fish, though, and sort of what I consider the Northern Hemisphere equivalent of, and this is getting back to Alaska, which would be the sablefish, also known as black cod and colloquially known as butterfish. So you can't put it on a menu as butterfish, but, well, that's a really apt description of the fish. It's not quite as thick as Chilean sea bass can get, or Patagonian toothfish, as it's also known. It's thinner, sometimes served with a skin on, but it is absolutely fantastic, delicious, domestically produced, highly sustainable, as is all the fish coming out of Alaska. It's also caught throughout California and the Pacific Northwest as well. But yeah, so that's another one to check out. Absolutely delicious, available year-round, frozen. It does really well as a frozen fish because it has such a high fat content that it allows for freezing. And it's also frozen at super high quality and super low temperatures often. So, hey, there's a great way to enjoy it. Chilean sea bass, sablefish. There's a little bit of info on the sustainability of that. So, hey, BK. It is awesome that you're continuing to join us on these. I really appreciate you. I appreciate you being a part of this and all your great questions. So with that, I'm going to ask my colleague over at Rouxbe to take us back to the recorded grilling sessions. We're going to learn a little bit more. We'll see how I did with the skin on grilling, and then we'll be back for you. Cheers.
All right. Hey, back again. So I've got my fire set up again. Come on over here, KK, if you would, please. So after we took the whole fish off, what we're doing now is going back to the indirect grilling method. So I started another charcoal fire. I've got some of the wood chunks down on the bottom there. As you see, I've got it all sectioned over to one side. The reason for that? Well, it's because I've got super hot, and then I've got warm, and then I've got medium heat in the middle. And what this allows me to do is to have moderated heat. So I can cook over smoking red hot coals over here, and then if I want to, do a slow and low cook over here to really crisp up that skin to finish it out. So I'm just going to wait for that fire to really die down to exactly where I want it to be. And so I'll do the skin on and the kelp wrapped there, but I wanted to talk about smoked sockeye salmon. So smoked sockeye salmon from Bristol, this is a traditional curing method for preservation that allowed them to eat allowed indigenous peoples to eat this fish throughout the year. And, well, it's also absolutely delicious, also known as salmon candy. Traditionally, it's cured in brown sugar and salt over the course of, well, up to a couple days, but even just a few minutes is enough if you're not really trying to preserve it. And then it is hot smoked. So this is a fully cooked product that flakes apart, different than like a European style cold smoke, which is just cured and then flavored with the smoke. And one of the ways that I love to eat this is with beer. Just eating it straight with a beer is absolutely delicious, and your fingers get all sticky. Oh man, it's so good. It's so good. But, however, this has so much incredible flavor to it that just blooms in dishes. So you don't need a whole lot of it to really carry its flavor through. And one of my favorite dishes, those of you who've been with me on previous episodes of this webinar events know that I love me a panzanella. Panzanella is a salad made out of, well, yesterday's bread, and so it gets nice and crunchy. This I've tossed with olive oil and toasted inside. And a panzanella is a bread salad with any ingredients of the season that then the bread soaks up all of those flavors of, and just, it's a nice way to use up old bread, but also to create really hearty dishes out of vegetables. So I've got one red onion that I just sliced up and then threw into a hot pan. I had an eggplant in the fridge, so I just, same thing with that, chunked that up, tossed it with olive oil in a hot pan until that was ready to go. Let's see, let's do some parsley here, add some green. You can see how rustic of a dish this is supposed to be, but it's generally just mixed flavors. So I mean, it's summertime. I've got a whole bunch of produce coming out of the yard here. I've got first of the season tomatoes, I got cucumbers. Now what you want to do is make sure that you have some ingredients that have some moisture to them, because it's that moisture that's really going to carry the whole dish and exude that liquid that's then going to be absorbed by the bread. So cucumbers, I've got some delicious first of the season tomatoes as well. Any kind of tomato would work with that. Season the whole thing, because you want to get those tomatoes and that eggplant and that onion, cucumber leaching their liquid, their water. So just a little bit of red wine vinegar. This is a red wine vinegar that I make here at home out of wine, because I have decided that 0 glasses of wine is not enough and 4 is too many. And because my wife doesn't drink, well, after 2 or 3 days of drinking the same wine, I get a little tired of it, and we still have that much left, so I throw it in a barrel that I've had for about 10 years now. And so it's the Seaver Family Farm vinegar, and it's really delicious. So let's toss that together. KK, you get in there, look at that. I mean, that is a beautiful, beautiful salad. And then just flake in the chunks of salmon, and you are looking really good, right? This is a nice salad. So you want to flake in some of it, like the lesser looking pieces, maybe tail pieces, thin pieces, and save some of those nicer pieces to sit on top as sort of a garnish to it. But there you go. Let's just serve that forth as it is with the smoked salmon sitting on top. And there you go. Look at that. Smoked salmon, smoked sockeye salmon, panzanella. And that's a nice dish to serve alongside of this one too. Just add some bulk to it, plus it's a slightly different flavor to it. And yeah, so there you go. So let's get started on the grill. See you in a second. All right, folks, we've made it, a long way through this cooking session with Bristol Bay sockeye salmon. We've got just a few things left to go in terms of techniques of on the grill. And again, a lot of these techniques can be applied to, well, just about any fish that's full flavored or rich, bluefish, striped bass, any of the salmons. But, well, as I said, Bristol Bay sockeye salmon is one of those seasonal seafood treats that I just love. And thanks again to our friends up there for helping us put this on today. So, for grilling skin on, again, I've just glistened it really with olive oil, and I'm going to put it parallel to the grill grates, just over top, directly over the fire. And that fire is hot. I burned myself putting it on there. So yeah. So then we also have the wrapped in kelp. Again, this was skinless, and this is just seasoned with salt, wrapped in rehydrated kelp. You can also use fresh. And with this, I'm going to put far away from the heat. And again, this is indirect grilling, so you've got high heat over here, you've got lower heat over here. And then we've got that sockeye salmon burger, and this has got the pickled ginger in it as well, seasoned with salt. And I've chilled this for a good long while so that it really gets some structural integrity to it, and that salt again draws out the water soluble proteins, thus helping it all to bind. So I've got that on there. So one of the things that I like to talk about when we're grilling seafood is, well, everybody's fear of grilling seafood, which is that you're going to feed the fire and not your family, right? Because it's going to fall apart or the skin's not going to come off. So, well, what makes the skin come off? What makes it fall apart? Touching it. Sitting on the grill, it's not going to fall apart. Nothing's going to happen to it, right? It's only when you go to touch it. So don't touch it. Touch it as little as you possibly can, right? So a couple of techniques to do that, and I'm going to stand on this side of the grill just for a minute here. Some of the techniques to do that is First off, don't worry about getting those perfect crosshatch marks on it, okay? Crosshatches don't make it delicious. Sure, they make it look really nice, but if you're worried about it coming off the grill or sticking, just literally remove an entire variable from it, which is that secondary touching of it. So, one of the things that also that I've done with it is I've placed it parallel to the grill grates. I cannot tell you how important this is, because if you're going to take this thing off the grill and you are fighting against the grill grates and you're trying to go like this and you're going in between them every single one, and you set yourself up for failure. But if you can just put your spatula down and go straight along those grill grates, there you go. You also want to give yourself something to work with so you can pull it up when need be, and you just want to let it sit there, right? You want to give it some time to sit and cook. You don't cook fish. Fire cooks fish. Let the fire do its work. And as I said, I like to indirect grill, and you can see how quickly this is cooking. You can see that albumin protein coming out. So that is a very hot fire. Now I want to put it on a lower heat section of the fire. So what would you do? Would you touch the fish? Sure, that's one way to do it. You want to see another way to do it? Watch this. I'm going to pick up the whole grill grate, and I'm going to move the fish away from that fire. Look at that. Ha! It didn't even touch the fish. Isn't that cool? There you go. That's all you have to do, right? Now, one of the other things that is key there, so I'm going to take this and move it just back over to the indirect section over here. One of the things that's key to that is another technique or trick that I like to do is the more touching that you have to do with the fish, the more, well, chances for error you have. So I make larger chunks. I will cook 2 portions in one, because then I'm only touching one portion, and yes, it's a little larger, but once you get under that, you're under it. So if I'm cooking dinner for 4, I'm cooking 2 pieces of salmon instead of 4. So that immediately halves the room for error, just by the fact that I'm cooking 2 larger pieces. And it's just as easy to cook 1 large one as it is to cook 1 small one. So with the burger, again, just let it sit. Give it time. Let the fire do the cooking. Don't worry about the crosshatch marks. It's not ready to flip until it flips easily. It's the plain truth of it. Again, let the fire do the cooking. And to that effect, I'm just going to do that, because what that does is it then captures all the heat of that grill and it makes it this flavorful oven. So that salmon that was over here crisping on the skin side, that thick laminated layer of fat directly underneath the skin, helping to baste it and self-crisp, that's happening over here while that top part is cooking slowly through, so you retain all that moisture and flavor. And speaking of flavors, what really goes well with sockeye salmon is a huge array of flavors. Now, salmon in general is a very, very versatile fish and has a lot of different options to pair with it. Sockeye, though, even more, because it has the most robust flavor of all of the salmons. And, well, the thing that I'm pairing with it here in the recipe that I've given for you, you can just click down the links right below me in the little viewer screen. Is the event document. They have some recipes in there, and what I made is a tahini vinaigrette. Now this is tahini, fresh ginger, olive oil, lemon juice, and that's it. But those sort of Mediterranean flavors to it just pairs beautifully with the smokiness of the fish off of the grill. So I'm just going to pull this off perfect over here. So that is now perfectly cooked. It is, yeah, moist and steamy, delicious all the way through. That burger cooked all the way through, nicely still textured there, and you can see the moisture coming out of it. And then I flipped this over already, and you can see what I did. Well, let's just do it again. Why not? So what you do is you lift it up one corner, and then you slide under with the tongue, with the spatula. And that way, you're not using the spatula to create that separation. You're using the natural separation and using the tongs to kind of achieve that. Then you put it on. Katie, can you get a close-up of that, please? You see how crispy that is? And you can hear it. It's so crispy. And that's going to cook in just another, well, 10 seconds or so until it's cooked all the way through. And I've got that tahini vinaigrette for that. And so yeah, we'll pull that off. Look at that. That really is beautifully, beautifully cooked. And then that vinaigrette just around the sides like that. Now obviously I'd serve this with a salad or something like that, but just like that. Can you hear that? It's really crispy. It's really nicely done. So, hey, that's sockeye salmon from Bristol Bay on the grill. I'm coming right back to you live for some questions about, well, anything you want to chat about, but there you go. Summer's bounty brought to you from Alaska. Cheers.
Hey, y'all. Awesome. Okay, so we're done grilling the salmon here, and we're back to take some questions. Now, I've got to say that I've had a hard out here just a few minutes after 3, so I'm going to try and get through all of your questions right now. But any that I don't get to, I will answer via email or put them as part of our July 23rd event and answer them then. We'll give you a heads up on that. But my wife has a very important presentation this afternoon, and, well, we're all in this together, so I'm here to support her. So let me... Cat is trying to get in. All right. What is the white foam from Tim? What is the white foam that sometimes comes out when cooking the fish? What that is it's albumin protein. It's the proteins that are naturally in the fish. And, well, it's very similar to egg whites, right? And that's what comes out that bubbles up. Sometimes it can also be some of the fat that renders out can sometimes look a little bit white. So that's what you're looking at with that. And it's totally normal. It's totally fine. I leave it in there because it adds, well, it's protein, it's flavor, it's moisture. It's not always that attractive, though. So one of the ways to avoid doing that is to cook it very low and slow. And when you cook low and slow, those proteins don't coagulate out as much, but they stay bound and within the fillet. And you're always going to get some of it, but you can avoid it with a low and slow technique, as I did on the grill there. Super hot on the skin, low and slow on the opposite side of the grill otherwise. So, cool. Thanks, Tim, I appreciate your question. Can you use the same recipe with other varieties of salmon like coho? Well, thanks, James. Yes, absolutely. All of the wild salmon are fabulously delicious. I mean, farm salmon is fabulously delicious too, especially when it's coming from sustainable sources, as you should always procure. But yes, these methodologies work with all the kinds of salmon. There are going to be slight differences amongst all the salmon. For example, pink salmon, which is the most abundant and the smallest physically of the species, but the largest of the fisheries, that's going to be the leanest of salmon. However, a lean salmon is still a very rich fish. That's going to cook a lot quicker. It's going to cook with a little bit less resiliency than a king salmon, which is the fattiest of all of the wild salmon, the richest, also the largest physically. So, yes, you're going to have some disparities there between subtle nuances within the fish, but absolutely all salmon take smoke really well. All salmon grill beautifully. All salmon skin doesn't need to be scaled. All salmon skin crisps wonderfully. All salmon then is best cooked at a lower and slower temperature on the flesh to retain as much of that moisture and deliciousness as possible. All salmon are super healthy for you as well. Tons of omega-3 fatty acids, and sockeye is, I believe, actually up towards the top of that list. So yeah, but coho is also one of my very favorites. I would say sockeye and coho are my two favorite of the wild species in terms of their flavor, their balance of fat to almost the acidity that they bring with them. So yeah. Hey, I appreciate your question. Thanks so much. Hey, Star. Nice to see you again, friend. Welcome back. In the first recipe, why use onion and garlic powder instead of fresh? So with that, I've got a soft spot for onion and garlic powder. I think they're absolutely fantastic. I mean, they add a depth of flavor but also a familiarity of flavor. I mean, ranch dressing, buttermilk dressing, like, yeah, of course, French onion dip. Yeah, we love these things. And they're basically onion and garlic powder flavor. The other reason why is, aside from just the familiarity of it and the deliciousness of it, the other is that in that recipe I use fresh shallots, which I think have a more mature flavor than other onions. I believe they also have a lesser moisture content, is exactly that. I don't want a whole lot of moisture in that marinade, in that sauce, because then it's going to just have to steam off rather than really what its function in there is, which is to baste and to sort of apply and lend flavor to the dish. So with that, just the shallot is enough there. And I know I've sort of doubled up between shallot and onion powder, but that's why. And you can certainly use an onion, but you're going to get a lot more liquid. You're going to have a lot more of a paste to it. You're going to have a lot less sort of structure to it. And so I just found that a blend of powder and shallot works best to achieve that moisture to fat ratio. Thanks, Star. Hey, you always have great questions. I appreciate you joining us again. Okay, from Julie P. Hi, Julie. When grilling fish fillets, do you sear skin side to the pan or the meat side? Great question. So if you're going to be serving skin on, bottom line is you should cook this. You cook the skin to an appreciable texture. If you're not going to be eating the skin, then you're just using it to protect the moisture, to protect the fillet, add some structural integrity so it's easier to get on and off the grill, right? So if you are going to be eating the skin, you should cook the skin to an appreciable texture. Get it crisp. Soggy, flabby, flaccid skin is just not, it doesn't sound very good, right? Because it isn't very good. So if you're doing that, you're going to need to cook the piece of fish for the majority of time on that skin in order to achieve that texture. So start there. You don't want to cook on the flesh side and then go, oh gosh, well now I'm 70% of the way through and I've got to flip it over and get the skin crisp. Don't set yourself up for that difficulty. If you're just cooking with the skin on for that structural integrity and for the moisture retention and flavor addition, then you want to cook the presentation side first. If you're trying to get some nice grill marks, some flavor from the grill, apply the flavor of the grill to the part of the fish that you're going to be eating, and that would be the flesh side. Whether that's in a pan for saute or on a grill, that's what you want to do. But I would still recommend that you start off on the flesh side to get that flavor, to get those nice grill marks, and then flip it over probably about 30% of the way through so that the skin provides that, can achieve its purpose of structural integrity, flavor, and moisture retention. Thank you. Hey, appreciate your question. All right, from Andy, what's your favorite seasoning or sauce to use for a quick pan-seared or grilled sockeye fillet recipe? Follow up, what's your favorite side dish with sockeye? Okay, so I'm going to put them here 2 in 1. And that's going to be cherry tomatoes, sherry vinegar, salt. There you go. Olive oil. So whether you're in a pan, cherry tomatoes are perfect to me because they generally have the right balance of flesh and moisture to skin and sort of the thickness and density of the flesh so that you can cook them down very quickly, but that they retain texture and that their moisture and the oil or whatever medium they're cooking in emulsifies very quickly. So with sockeye, if you're in a pan, cook skin side down or flesh side up, as I just answered for the previous question. And then just before you're done, throw in a bit more olive oil, throw in a bunch of cherry tomatoes, maybe a little bit of garlic, cap it with just a few drops of sherry vinegar, and cook until those tomatoes release their juices, which should only take about a minute, especially if you're using nice, fresh, beautiful cherry tomatoes from your garden or from the farmer's market. And in that way, you get this wonderful sauce that has little bits of the salmon in there and some of the oils that have oozed out into the pan. All of that gets emulsified in with the tomatoes. So you have both a sauce and sort of a side dish all in one. And that works brilliantly in the broiler. It works brilliantly on the grill. Though with the grill, I would say either use a grill basket or put them on skewers, kebabs, something like that. And in that way, it's going to be a little bit different because it's not going to boil down or reduce as it will in a pan. You're not going to capture that liquid, but you're still going to get, excuse me, a side dish that acts like a sauce. So that is my very favorite. Other than that, though, I would say, excuse me, from another vegetable perspective, spicy greens, whether you're talking about kale and mustard mix, mature greens that you saute down with garlic and olive oil. Again, that sort of acts like a sauce in that it adds moisture and flavor and texture, but it's also this brilliant side dish. And if you're on the grill, just take some lacinato kale leaves, the dinosaur kale or black kale, and strip them off of the stem. You can pickle the stems, they're really good. But then just toss the leaves with olive oil, throw them on the grill when you're done, let them burn, let them get crispy. They'll kind of flake apart, become almost powdery, but still with a lot of texture to them. And again, it adds so much flavor to the fish while also acting as a side. There you go. Awesome. Hey, Andy, thanks so much. Appreciate you. Okay, from Xavier. Amazing recipes to be done on a grill. Hey, thanks, buddy. We wish you could have taken this from the butchering of the whole fish to get your final cut. Yes. Sorry, we didn't have enough time to do that. I did, however, get a video of it, and we're going to be sharing that during the July 23rd seminar. So please tune into that. Send some other questions. We're going to be filleting up that sockeye, and I'll probably get a round fish like a cod or something to do a different type of butchery on. So, hey, Xavier, thanks for joining today, and I hope you join in the future, and I appreciate your interest in this. Cheers. All right, from Brenda. Recently brought frozen cod fillets. Fresh wasn't available. Frozen fish appears to always be skinless. Do you recommend cooking these? Searing was difficult as it stuck to my very hot non-stick. Wow. Okay, Brenda. So, yes, frozen fish tends to be skinned off, as I've seen, especially with whitefish. I could suppose an answer for that, but I'm not really sure as to why that is. But however, frozen salmon often does come with the skin on, and frozen sockeye salmon in particular tends to have the skin on just because the size of the fillets and the tender flake of the meat calls for the retention of the skin. So with that, the issue around frozen is that it can rupture cells within the fish. And it does that because, well, when water or moisture freezes, it expands. We know this. And so if you've got a cell, which inside the cell has protein, salt, vitamins, minerals, all that stuff, and mostly water, well, if you then freeze it very slowly, low temperature, and it expands, well, at some point, those walls rupture. And that's where that exudation comes from. If you freeze water very quickly, it expands less. And so that's why technology for freezing really matters. How low of a temperature was it frozen? How long of a time did the freezing process take? So A, look for higher quality IQF, individually quick frozen product from a trusted brand. The other thing to do is to just wrap those things in paper towels and let them sit. And then take off the paper towels and let them sit again. Wrap them again in paper towels. Really get them dry. And that is going to mitigate some of that exudation factor and give you the ability to sear. Because searing is when you're caramelizing proteins, not when you are steaming off liquid. Caramelization of proteins happens at a higher temperature than 212, which is where liquid goes. And those proteins can't really get above 212 until that moisture on the surface is gone. So take off the moisture on the surface and you're going to get a quicker sear. You're going to get less difficulty in sticking, even to what you seem to have done very correctly, which is a very hot nonstick pan. So I hope that helps, Brenda. Hey, thanks so much. Okay, I've got time for just one or two more here. So thank you so much. From Bill D. Oh, hi, friend. That's Bill Demento from Highliner Foods, one of the greatest of all champions, the world's only grand champion of sustainability, a mentor, a friend, a champion of mine own. Thank you, Bill, for joining us. Appreciate you. And you ask, what, no Maine blueberries on the beautiful salmon salad? Well, that is a great idea. Smoked salmon and blueberries actually do go very well. Blueberries being one of Maine's great exports, as well as a great thing up in Alaska that I foraged wild up there. So panzanella salads do really well with some sweetness added to them. In the dish that I did right there, it was red onions. Red onions add incredible sweetness. In the fall or autumn, about the same season, roasted butternut squash and grapes. In midsummer, throw some cherries in there with some tarragon and chopped fresh shallots and cucumbers, stuff like that. But yes, that sweetness pairs beautifully with smoked fish, offers a counterbalance there of smoke and sweet, which is, well, if you like barbecue sauce, that's America's, sweet, sour, smoky. They kind of integrate that into the same salad. So, hey, Bill, nice to see your name pop up, friend. Thanks for the question. Okay, and from Tammy, how do you make your red wine vinegar in a barrel? I knew that was going to come up. So it's an oak barrel. I've got about a 20-liter barrel, and this is the fourth barrel over the course of 10, almost 11 years now that I've used. And I started off with a red wine mother, so a vinegar mother that I found. I believe it was TexasOakBarrelsLimited.com. Some combination of those words right there. They sell both very high-quality barrels as well as a mother. And I started it off with that, and you just keep feeding it a little bit of red wine, white wine, whatever, rosé wine. I just throw it all in there. And water to the white ratio. You want to have your alcohol content be about 10%, I think is where you want to be. Most modern wines tend to be 14, 15% alcohol. So diluting it by a third with water gets you right about where you want to be. And it's a Solera system, which means for every drop of vinegar I take out of that barrel, there are molecules from the very first glass of wine I poured in there. But there are also a lot more molecules of the wine I most recently poured in there. In that way, it becomes this self-maturing vinegar that holds the consistency and quality of product for a very long time. It's beautiful, and I give it away to friends as gifts. When I find a really great deal on a great quality bottle of red wine at the store, I'll just pick up a case and dump it all in there. So, yeah. It's worth its weight, I'll tell you that. So I'm going to end with one more last question on sockeye here. Again, I want to thank my friends up at Bristol Bay Seafood. Please check them out, bristolbaysalmon.org. Up there at the top there, Patrick, if you wouldn't mind putting that back up at the top. Check them out. Bristol Bay Seafood is, again, one of America's greatest resources. It is also under threat from a potential copper, molybdenum, and gold mine called the Pebble Mine that is being investigated and invested in. And while I say we live in a world where mining is necessary, in fact, I'm talking to you on electronics that use gold circuitry and copper wires. I'm not anti-mining, but I'm anti this mine in this place always, because it is America's greatest reserve of food there is. It is worth protecting. Over 8,000 jobs are sustained by this, and humankind has been sustained for tens of thousands of years by the salmon in this bay. So please visit bristolbaysalmon.org. Check out what you can do to fight the Pebble Mine. But one of the most important things you can do is to support the sustainable and lasting economy of salmon up there in Bristol Bay by buying delicious sockeye salmon from it. It is the leader in sustainability and health and deliciousness too. So with that, are salmon heads good for making fish stock? Yes, they are. But you got to treat it low, slow, and quick. So salmon can get very muddy and murky in flavor in terms of the stock very quickly. So what you want to do is add lots of white wine, enough acid. You want to add flavors like bay leaf and fennel seed that are really going to brighten and heighten and match the robustness of the salmon. And you want to cook it for maybe about 10 minutes. And that's it. You just want to set those proteins and kind of clarify that liquid. And as soon as you can basically smell the salmonness from it, turn it off. Let it sit, let it cool down. Definitely do not let it boil. You don't want to let it get really above 170 degrees or so, I'd say. You're not looking for huge depth of flavor. You're looking for the essence, the beauty, the transcendent joy that is eating salmon from Bristol Bay. So with that, folks, I'm sorry that I can't take the rest of the questions. I will answer them either via email or in our next segment, but I've got to go support my wife in her professional endeavors as we trade off on daycare today and every day. So thanks for joining me here on the delicious Ragged Coast of Maine to talk about, well, Bristol Bay sockeye salmon from the opposite coast. Thanks to my friends up there for making this possible, and we'll see you again soon. Cheers. Much love.